You can hear me now. So this morning we're going to be talking about kindness. I don't know about you, but over the years, have you shared my screen? Oh, sorry, my technical advisor here is a little bit behind. Can you share my screen? Thank you. Oops. Give him a minute. There we go. Hopefully we can see that. Okay, so I don't know about you, but over the beginning of the lockdown period back last March, when I was looking through my social media feed, there were a lot of posts about kindness. You might recognise some of them. There's this one: if you have to choose between being kind and being right, choose being right. Choose being kind, and you will always be right. Or perhaps this one: in a world where you can be anything, be kind always. Everyone is fighting a battle you know nothing about, be kind always. Or personal favourite of mine: if you can't be kind, be quiet. It feels like that some of those memes have dried up over the last months. I think at the beginning of lockdown, we were perhaps all conscious of a need to be considerate of others. And that's perhaps faded a little bit, but kindness is something that I've been thinking a lot over the last few weeks, really, thinking about what it is, what it means in practice. So what does actually kindness mean? Well, I think one of the things about the word kindness is perhaps it's a little bit vague in its definition, both in English, but also in the Greek, which a lot of it was written in. It's quite hard to define. So perhaps some of the words that we could use to talk about kindness, it contains elements of these: love, grace, mercy, forgiveness, generosity, benevolence, goodness, helpfulness, consideration. Of course, I'm aware that kindness is a word that's used in the Bible, but I think I was just trying to remember the other day, and I was asking a few other people, but in my 53 years of going to church, I can't actually remember a sermon on kindness. And it's referred to, you know, when people talk about the fruits of the Spirit, because it's one of the fruits of the Spirit. It's included when we talk about the famous passage in 1 Corinthians about love, where it talks about love being kind. And I might have forgotten, because I've listened to a lot of sermons over the last 53 years, but I don't remember one about kindness. And maybe that's because it is a bit vaguer than some of the other words that we talk about, like love and mercy. And maybe it just seems a little bit more of a fluffy word than some of the other words that we use to describe God's, like all-powerful and all-knowing and creator of all things. But kindness doesn't necessarily come top when I'm thinking about the attributes of God. But the Bible does actually talk quite a lot about kindness. So in Jeremiah 9:23-24, it says, "This is what the Lord says: let not the wise boast of their wisdom, or the strong boast of their strength, or the rich boast of their riches. But let the one who boasts boast about this: they have an understanding to know me, that I am the Lord who exercises kindness, justice, and righteousness on earth. For in these I delight, declares the Lord." So kindness there is included with some significant words there: justice and righteousness. And the context of this is that God is talking about the covenant that he made with Israel, a covenant that was made with kindness because of how much he loves people. So in this particular one, he's talking about the old covenant with the people of Israel, but it's the same kindness that is behind the new covenant, which is the covenant that he made with us, that through Jesus' death and resurrection, that we could have eternal life and a relationship with him. So those are quite powerful. That's a powerful expression of kindness, isn't it? It's the motivation behind that covenant, that sacrifice that God made for us. So perhaps one way of describing God's kindness could be love in action. Love is an emotion that perhaps you can feel inside without actually showing much on the outside, but kindness, you can only really show kindness through actions. In Jeremiah again, in chapter 31, verse 3, again, the Lord is talking about his covenant with the people here. And it says to us, the Lord appeared to us in the past saying, I have drawn you with an everlasting love. I have drawn you with kindness. So here he's talking about, God doesn't force himself on us. God draws us to him. He in the New Testament, we see that he goes looking for us. It's with kindness and compassion. He does that out of his love for us. And it reminds me a little bit of, if you meet a child and they're a bit shy of you the first time you meet them, and you have to coax them, you have to talk gently to them, and that's the sort of image I get of God drawing us to himself with kindness. Jesus also talks about kindness in the New Testament. So in Luke 6:35, we've got, but love your enemies, do good to them and lend to them without expecting to get anything back. Then your reward will be great and you will be children of the Most High, because he is kind to the ungrateful and wicked. I think this is another feature of kindness, particularly God's kindness, is that it doesn't come to people just because they deserve it. And it's done without any hint of wanting reward. It's done from completely altruistic motives, completely for the other people's benefits, not because of what somebody might get back from it. God is kind to everybody, whether they are part of his family or not. There's so many blessings that we have. It says in the Bible, every good thing comes from God. And that's really so true, isn't it? So in Acts 14:17, here we have somebody talking about God's kindness again. It says, yet he has not left himself without testimony. He has shown kindness by giving you rain from heaven and crops in their seasons. He provides you with plenty of food and fills your hearts with joy. So here we've got God's kindness shown in his generosity. Again, this generosity isn't just for people who love him, but for everybody. He's shown that kindness by providing so much for us. So those are a few things that hopefully give some illustration of God's kindness. And of course, we are called to be Christ-like, aren't we? We're called to become like God, and so being able to demonstrate the same kindness in our lives as God demonstrates is something that we should be looking to attain to. So Ephesians 4:32, Paul says to the Ephesians, be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you. So this comes at the end of a passage where Paul's telling the Ephesians lots of things they shouldn't be doing to each other, like gossiping and all the rest of it. But kindness is something that it helps build trust. It makes people feel loved. It makes people feel accepted. And it builds a sense of community as well as people are kind to one another. I think probably one of the biggest examples of kindness in the Bible is, other than all that God's done for us, is the parable of the Good Samaritan. isn't it? So the Samaritan who came along and across the Jew that had been attacked and robbed and left for dead, you know, the Samaritans were hated by the Jews. You know, he was that person's enemy, but he was the one who stopped and took that man to a place where he could be safe and paid for his care and made sure he was okay. Now that sort of kindness isn't vague and fluffy, is it? It's really powerful kindness. He saved that person's life. He went beyond what could have been expected of him in order to help that person. And that's such an example of the sort of kindness that we need to be showing to people. It's more than being nice to fluffy kittens and holding the door open for people, you know, occasionally. I mean, that those are all sorts of important things. But kindness can be absolutely life-changing for people. So I was thinking about some examples of kindness, I suppose, that I know about. I mean, obviously, you've got very obvious and famous examples of kindness, such as people like Mother Teresa, who gave up her whole life to show kindness to people, and by doing so, changed a lot of people's lives and was an example to many. But I was also trying to think of people in my own life who I know who are really good examples of kindness as well. And sorry, I hope I don't embarrass him, but I was thinking about Jane actually was the first person that came into my mind when I thought about kind people, because Jane is always somebody who has a compassionate word, who always thinks well of people, and you can't come away from a conversation with Jane without feeling better. She's just got this reassuring, caring presence that just makes people feel better. So to me, she's a really good example of kindness. And then I was thinking about Anna as well, as somebody who's really kind. And I remember going shopping with Anna. I can't remember what we were doing or why, but we got stopped by a big issue seller, and she not only stopped to buy the copy of the big issue, and she told me later it was the third one that she bought that week, but she took the time to talk to that person like that they were, I don't know, like they meant something to her, you know. She didn't just ignore them and walk past. And I was having a little look on the Big Issue website in preparation for this, and they were talking about what we can do for homeless people. And they say one of the biggest things that people can do is just not ignore somebody, and even if it is to make eye contact and say no thank you, that showing respect, showing that you recognize that person is a person, makes a massive difference, because often the people on the streets are lonely. They may not have talked to anybody else that day, and are being ignored by hundreds of people just walking past. And I remember watching a programme on the homeless in Cardiff a couple of years ago, and they were talking about one particular person, interviewing him because he'd turned his life around and got off the streets. And he was saying that the big thing that made the biggest difference to him was when people treated him like a person, that they actually spoke to him and made eye contact with him. So, you know, it's quite small things, but small things can make a massive difference to people. Well, Anna and Jane are perhaps people that you know, quite obviously spring to mind when we think about kindness, because they're obviously kind, compassionate, empathetic people. And I was trying to think of examples of kindness from people who might not necessarily, those might not necessarily be the words that we use to describe them. And I was thinking of my boss, actually, and he would not call himself a pastoral person in the slightest. You wouldn't go necessarily to him for, sympathy and tissues. But actually, I think he is a really kind person. And the way that he demonstrates his kindness is the respect that he shows to people. So he treats everybody on the team with a huge amount of respect. And if anything, on paper, the sort of the people who might be considered less important because they're doing lower grade jobs, he will actually treat with more respect, not less respect. And as a result, we have a team where everybody feels that they're valued and everybody feels that they've got a contribution to make. So if you don't feel like you're a naturally empathetic and compassionate person, it doesn't rule you out of showing kindness. Kindness can look different for different people, depending on what your personality is, really. I suppose the additional benefit to all of it is that kindness is actually good for us as well. Numerous studies have shown that when we are kind to others, that does us good, our mental health good, it does our physical health good. Kind people actually live longer. Now, obviously, if you start being kind in order to benefit yourself, that sort of is not, it defeats the object of it. But it is interesting, isn't it, that doing something that God has asked us to do actually does have a beneficial effect on us as well as the people we come into contact with. Of course, that isn't a surprise to God. In Proverbs, long before any scientific research was done on this, the writer says, "A man who is kind benefits himself, but a cruel man hurts himself." So being kind isn't a vague and fluffy thing. It's actually quite hard. Sometimes it involves things like sacrifice and our time and perhaps being uncomfortable, all sorts of things like that. So it's not an easy thing by any means, and it's something that we need God's Spirit to help us with. Sometimes we can be kind on the spur of the moment. We can see something happening, and maybe just step in with a kind action. We were on the way home from the rugby yesterday in queues of traffic, and Paul jokingly said to me, "Oh, if I let this person into traffic, will I get a mention in the sermon this morning for being kind?" So there's your mention, Paul. But often kindness is a habit that you have to develop. It takes practice. You need to be intentional about it. So in a minute, Kate's going to take us into a time of worship. And in the first song, I'd like us just to think about that, because often at the end of something like this, you can think, oh, yes, I need to be kinder. I need to do something about that. But then the busyness of the week comes and you lose it. And a few weeks later, you think, oh, I didn't do that, did I? So I'd like us this morning just to have a think about, what ways could we show kindness this week, and actually then take steps to put those into practice. You might find it helpful just to jot those down as well, as we're in this next song of worship. All right, I think it's over to Kate.